Hey Aquarius, this is Courtney from Willow's Bloom, and today we are going to take a look at your 2022 astrology forecast. And this is for Aquarius risings, but you can also listen to it for your sun sign, although your rising sign will be the most accurate. I have my astrology notes right here, and I'm also going to be pulling tarot cards for each of the transits that I see so that we can get some more context about how this might affect you. I always recommend, though, getting a personal reading, a 2022 reading, because it will actually look at the transits in comparison to your unique natal chart, which is going to have a totally different unfolding than this general reading. So I highly recommend that, or at least getting like a transit report, which is cheaper, so that you kind of know like the really big stuff happening this year. So the first thing I want to talk about are the nodes moving from Gemini and Sag into Taurus and Scorpio. So the North Node is moving into Taurus in your 4th house. And the South Node is moving into Scorpio in your 10th house. And all this is happening on January 18th, and the nodes will remain there for the next year and a half. And so essentially what this does is it gives us an opportunity to make really big changes along the 4th and the 10th house axis, because that is where we experience the eclipses, which generate a lot of energy in our chart. So the South Node is kind of what we are leaving behind, and the North Node is a lot about what we are meant to step into or grow into over time. And okay, so having the South Node in the 10th house is interesting because this is basically asking you to let go of certain things in your career. So this could be moving on from a certain idea that you had in your career, a certain path. Maybe you were working towards something and you realize this year that it's not in alignment for you. Having the South Node specifically in Scorpio means a lot of this could be psychological, where you begin to understand maybe certain needs aren't being met, or certain patterns and emotional reactions come up in your career that you're meant to leave behind. So sometimes it's not always the physical reality. Sometimes it's more the mental and emotional reality that needs to be purged or reflected upon and let go of. And with the Knight of Pentacles, I feel like a lot about what you are doing is kind of examining, with this Knight of Pentacles next to the Hermit, like the style in which you work. So the Knight of Pentacles is extremely dedicated. This is someone who shows up consistently, who works really hard, and who loves their craft, or at least shows up like they love their craft, whether or not they do or not. So this is somebody who might be just like kind of grinding a little bit. And I feel like with the Hermit card next to it, you guys might understand a little bit more about why you are grinding, or like the way in which you work. So essentially, I feel like you guys might show up to your work in a certain way. And with the Hermit card here, it's telling me that you are examining maybe like what you're doing, if that makes sense, and like why you are doing it that way. I know that's probably not super clear. And with the Strength card, I feel like it's adding to this image of like really working super, super hard and like grinding. That's why I see the Knight of Pentacles and Strength is like I am showing up every single day, and I'm like having to push through or endure this experience. And I feel like the Hermit card is asking you to reflect on, why you're doing that, or why this is happening in your life. Like, is it trying to balance out certain things from the past? Are you paying off some karma or some dues? Or are you hiding from like limiting beliefs and like running from spending time alone? Like, there can be so many different reasons for the style that you work or the way that you approach work. And like putting so much energy and effort into it. And I feel like you're examining that specifically. And with the Ace of Cups, 2 Swords, and 5 of Cups, I definitely feel like you guys might find that there are certain aspects of your current career trajectory, or your public image, or even like a certain tradition that you're in, like a marriage, some kind of like existing structure in your life that you have been dedicating yourself to, I think is not really enough for you. The Ace of Cups to me, I feel like, is you guys realizing that there might be something else that's a little bit more aligned, or maybe you guys are working towards something that is more aligned and you already see it. But there's some like essential dissociation or discrepancy between what you feel like or what you see could be your best and highest, most fulfilling potential and where you are right now. And so I think that that disparity is causing a little bit of a lack of clarity and almost like a disappointment with your current chapter. It might not be that intense for some of you guys. You guys might just be grinding, realizing you're working towards something, and that's fine. But some of you guys might actually have low points where you feel like, with this Five of Cups, that things are really not going for you, going as well as you'd hoped. With these Three Cups spilled and this person focusing on it, I really feel like things are okay for you guys, and that maybe there's just some kind of like karmic debt you're paying off, because the South Node in the 10th, well, South Node in general is like often where we're kind of wrapping up a cycle from the past and paying off that karma, if that makes sense, and like closing a chapter. So this is in your career. So you guys might have this little bit of year and a half where things are not like super like progressing a lot, if that makes sense, in your career field, because it's not really as much about progressing your career field as it is about developing your interior world and your home life, with the North Node being in your 4th house. So you guys might find that you have certain job changes, because sometimes with the South Node, it can create endings. So you guys might have certain job changes. And with this Two of Swords, it's possible that you guys know that something else better is out there, but you're not really sure what it is. And you are like having not just self-doubt, but like self-deprecation or unhappiness because of negative thinking, instead of trying to look at the glass half full. So I think a lot of you guys, there's going to be a lot of different kinds of scenarios, but regardless, I think that you guys are working really hard at maybe something that isn't fully there for you. And I think that some of you could be ending it, some of you might not be, but regardless, you kind of know that there's something better out there, and not being there makes you kind of question a lot of things and be upset at times. So I guess my advice to you would be not to so much focus on what's going wrong in your career or what isn't perfect. I would say that this is not like the energy of this year. The energy of this year is to release maybe some things, like stop doing things a certain way or have greater understanding about why you're doing things a certain way. But trying to like make huge strides in your career when the South Node is there is kind of like trying to run uphill when you feel sick. It's like that's not really the time for that activity. So it's more so after this year and a half that you guys are meant to like have things kind of click into place a little bit more. And so I don't want you guys to get discouraged, not trying to like dissuade you from pursuing your career and your purpose. That's not at all what I'm saying. And I do think some of you guys will be leaving behind certain things and maybe coming more into your purpose. But I do think that having kind of certain realistic expectations about what you should be doing this year and where the energy and focus should be, hopefully this is kind of helping, because this is not meant to be like disappointing at all. I think that you guys are just in a different cycle right now where you're meant to be working and kind of working hard and analyzing like why you're in this phase, and then after that I think things will like start to click into place, like I was saying. So having the North Node in the 4th house is indicating to me that you're not so much career focused or out in the world. Not that you can't be out in the world, but that's not quite as much the focus. It's like the focus is now more so on what's inside of you. The Knight of Cups, the Emperor, the Queen of Swords. I think that a lot of you guys are working on kind of like with the Knight of Cups, I feel like one of the things that's coming to mind is like romanticizing your life and kind of dating yourself, if that makes sense. So the North Node of the 4th house is a lot about internal deep exploration of the self and who we are in really intimate, safe, caring, and loving environments. And so I think part of you guys are meant to like fall in love with yourself and your life again with this Knight of Cups. Follow your passions, your creativity, and like do things that just make you feel good without having necessarily an incentive. Like, oh, I have to Like, I'm working really hard on this, blah, blah, blah. But can you just like do things that feel good? Can you just like work on your hobbies? Can you just work on your crafts? Like anything that brings you joy, and not put the pressure of like making it financially stable, because you guys do seem to have a job here that you're working hard on. Most of you anyway. So it's kind of more so just like realigning with pleasure and the joy of your inner light and your authenticity, and like taking yourself on dates, romanticizing your life and yourself, like doing the things that feel good and making it somehow ceremonious or special, I think is part of what this North Node of the 4th house is. The other word that came into mind with the Emperor and the Queen of Swords was working on certain values, like your sense of integrity. The Emperor and the Queen of Swords, these are two individuals that really live according to their truth, and they follow through on their word and on their action. So I feel like a lot of this is like personal development in a lot of ways. And also really showing up within your household. So if you have a home, or if you live with roommates, or if you have family members, a lot of this is asking you guys to like show up in a really honest and transparent way with those that are very close with you, those that love you, and those that live with you, with this Queen of Swords, like communicating very clearly about your needs and being, just being truthful in the home. The Emperor to me is about somebody taking care of their ish within the home. So if you do have a physical home, it could be you guys like redecorating, or it could be you guys making sure that you have a really good cleaning schedule. There's some element of like structure that you're meant to bring into the home, and responsibility and integrity. So it's not only within your relationships and with your connection to yourself, but also how you show up to take care of those that you love the most, or those that, or like the things that you love the most in your surrounding environment. So it's a lot about like the deeper inner world and our most intimate kind of space, and how we interact with that and developing that relationship. So it's a lot different than having so much energy out into the world and trying to like build a career and be seen. That's not necessarily the focus. So that was a really long explanation of that. We also have Jupiter moving into Pisces, which on December 29th, actually, so kind of at the time of filming this, it's going to stay in Pisces until May. Then it's going to dip out into Aries for a few months and then come back into Pisces. So primarily in Pisces, which is your second house for most of the year. Jupiter also loves to be in Pisces, so it is a really beautiful time. Like Jupiter is very powerful in this sign. And so it's going to give you guys a lot more blessings around security, because the second house is where we have financial security and self-confidence, and where we feel stable within ourselves. So sometimes that's also like putting in the grind or developing skills to eventually become really autonomous. So that's again, I feel like a focus for you guys this year. And I think for a lot of you, this year is about a lot of self-love and self-growth with this 4 of Swords and 10 of Cups. Jupiter in Pisces helps us give ourselves a lot of compassion and understanding. And because the 4 of Swords is here, it makes me feel like you guys are really developing an internal practice spiritually, like meditating, having time alone, reflecting, connecting with your own energy, and filling up your own cup with these 10 of Cups, like giving yourself true compassion, love, understanding, fulfillment, like doing things that you know are going to make you happy and confident. I think a lot of you guys will leave this year feeling a lot more confident in yourself and your ability to create money. So I don't feel like money is an issue for you guys this year, really, with, of course, it depends on your chart, but with Jupiter in the second, in a sign like Pisces where it loves to be, I don't think money is an issue. I think it's really just like your self-image and your relationships really close to you and within the home that are undergoing the transformation this year. So because Jupiter is moving into Pisces, that means Saturn is alone in your first house. And you guys have been kind of going through it with Saturn. Aquarius has been getting all this energy. And so it's time for, I was going to say it's time for a break, but actually not, because Jupiter helps Saturn. And so when it leaves it alone to its own devices, Saturn can actually be a little bit more challenging to us. In the first house, I feel like it's really trying to develop your sense of maturity. So maybe some of you will have to take on more responsibility this year. Maybe some of you could experience health issues, and it's like really forming your character because of those challenges and struggles. Maybe some of you will feel the pressure to start like achieving or doing something in your life that's really substantial. And again, I kind of want to say, like, with Saturn in your first and the South Node in your 10th house, I don't see that this is a year that you're going to have that like massive like career breakthrough. Not that you can't, but those are typically, this is kind of like the grind year or the preparation year for the breakthrough. So again, not saying that you can't, but it's just, that's kind of like the cycle I feel like you might be in. Okay, so you guys got the King of Swords, the Knight of Swords, the Tower, and the Justice card. So again, like I was saying before, I feel like the Saturn in the first is trying to give you guys, push you guys into responsibility and maturity that might be uncomfortable at times. When we start off with the King of Swords, this to me is saying that you guys are becoming like very honest with yourself. Very discerning, very judicious. That's all Saturn type energy. You know, it's like Saturn just makes things like really clear to us in terms of what's going wrong, what's going right, who we are as a person, our contribution to things. Like Saturn just lays it on thick. Does that make sense? No. Saturn is just makes the truth come out in all of its bleakness in a way. You know, it's like it doesn't hide anything, and we can see ourselves like really transparently. That's why it's important to have Jupiter in the second help you with self-confidence, because Saturn in the first is going to help you get really critical about every area of your life and see it very clearly and very factually, sometimes a little bit too harshly. So that's something that you guys are meant to cultivate, is self-confidence, while also being honest with how you contribute to certain things going right or wrong in your life. And right and wrong, you know, it's like not just wrong, because Saturn sometimes does that. It has this focus on the fear, the anxiety of us not being enough. And so it's our time to really be clear about every area of your life, but also give yourself credit. And with the Knight of Swords, this is interesting. I kind of feel like this is saying with Saturn in the first and this realization or this clarity that comes with the King of Swords, I feel like this is you taking action on it. I also feel like sometimes it's really quick action. And maybe this is your recommendation, because maybe not all of you will actually do this, but I feel like what it's saying is you're going to receive this transparency about your life and yourself. You're going to realize maybe where adjustments need to be made, where you need to grow up in a lot of ways, because what Saturn is about, or where you maybe have been taking on too much burden, like being really clear about everything. It could be anything for you guys. And then it's recommending to take quick action on it. Don't sit and think about it. Don't worry about it. Don't fret about it. Just kind of do something to change it. Even if it's not perfect at first. The Knight of Swords is like rushing into something without like planning everything out and having to control everything. It's like, I'm just going to stop this, or I'm just going to start this. And next to the Tower card, I feel like it's saying that allowing like taking the action with the Knight of Swords to go really quickly towards a certain outcome, and then allowing things to fall is really going to benefit you. Like, so there are going to be some things that you push over and they fall in your life, and then there are going to be things that after this realization and you taking certain actions, there are going to be certain things that fall away without your permission or your action. So I feel like this Tower card is just kind of telling you with Saturn in the first, like, these things falling away are meant to fall away. Like, Saturn tends to end things, end cycles, and it's within our life. It's in the first house. So it's definitely within our sphere of like really important foundational aspects of our life, like career, relationships, where you live, all those things. the Tower is saying that you have potential for those things to change this year and to kind of just release the reins and allow that to happen. And I feel like with the Justice card, it's basically telling me that there is karmic endings and karmic beginnings. Saturn is not just about ending, it's also about committing deeper to things that are truly in alignment with us. And so this Justice card to me is saying that these things were always meant to be. They're meant to be there or be gone. And so it's a fairness that's coming through. It's justice being served in your life. And so for some of you, if you've been having past actions that are really not good, you guys might actually suffer some karmic consequences of that. Not to say that you guys are going to like be hurt or anything, just that there are just energies that come back around. And it's not something to fear. Again, it's just that it's like the scales have to tip and balance. And it's like you might have to learn certain lessons based off of past actions. That's something that I've experienced a lot this year, is like doing something to someone else and then 3 weeks later the same thing being done to me and seeing how it felt. And so that's kind of what I see here. It's not like, oh my God, like I'm just going to be suffering. No, it's just like, did you do good stuff to people? Like some of those actions might just kind of come back to you in an energetic form. Or challenging stuff. There's lessons to learn with both, about receiving or about how it feels when that's being done. So basically Saturn is really forming you in a lot of ways and trying to get you guys to become really clear about your contribution to your life, good and bad, like I was saying, and take on more responsibility or commit further to the important foundational aspects of your life, to uplifting things and cut away the things that are not meant to be there. All right, so you guys are going to have the sun moving through your first house if you are Aquarius rising specifically in January and February, and then Venus will be there in March and April. So these are your months in terms of like getting recognition or having big changes in like your love life or being more attractive, and maybe even attracting finances and abundance. Like these are the months in which those things are going to come to you much more easily. So let's go ahead and look at some of the other transits happening. Basically starting off this year, I mean, at the time of filming this, Venus is retrograde in Capricorn, and hanging out with Pluto. So this is kind of an intense time where a lot of us are examining our relationship patterns, our money patterns. People from the past can come up. Issues from the past can come up. We start to question ourselves or challenge our current reality. So it's definitely kind of a big time for a lot of us. And because yours is in the 12th house, I definitely feel like there is a connection to the past. Like whenever I see the 12th house coming up, I'm like, oh, okay, definitely like, hey, your past is coming up right now to be focused on. And that happens with a retrograde anyway. So it's like doubly so. And then on top of that, the 12th house is extremely spiritual. And it's also related to the subconscious. So there can be kind of a lot going on surrounding your spiritual connection to these two elements of your life, money and relationships, as well as the subconscious. So things surfacing that were pushed down into a lack of awareness, essentially. Interesting. For this, I got the Knight of Swords, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Five of Pentacles. So some of you guys might have like certain tendencies that are surfacing around, like as I was saying before, the Knight of Swords is a lot about like jumping in maybe before you're ready, or being impulsive, or like having certain tendencies to like try to come in, like step in and save the day. And so I think for a lot of you guys, because sometimes the 12th house is also like martyrdom, and I feel like needs to be some element of surrender when we're having Venus moving through there in a retrograde. It's like maybe surrendering some of these like needs, like the need to be super helpful. Not that that's a bad thing, but in terms of like martyrdom, where you're self-sacrificing, that's always a a possibility. Or with the Knight of Swords, maybe surrendering the need to jump into what feels good, because that's sometimes that's what Venus is our desire nature, our pleasure nature. So sometimes you might jump into what feels good impulsively without actually like really assessing the longevity of that situation and knowing if that's good for you long term. That's what the Knight of Swords is about, is like kind of taking this rash action without necessarily thinking about it. And because we're having a retrograde, we're examining those aspects of ourselves. And next to the Wheel of Fortune, I feel like it's asking you to complete this cycle. That might not be the cycle that you're going through, but there is some kind of cycle that you are completing, because the 12th house is the last house of the zodiac. It's where the planet dies and then is reborn in your first when it moves into the next house. So the Wheel of Fortune to me is indicating that you are trying to complete some cycle, and release or surrender the need for those things I was talking about. And then you'll start to see like your fate shift essentially, for the better. But being next to the 5 of Pentacles, I kind of feel like the past is getting in the way a little bit. Like the 5 of Pentacles is about past relationships not meeting our needs, or about like poverty consciousness that comes from the past. So those issues in particular might be coming up for you guys to deal with or to feel through or to address. And so again, I feel like there's a really strong thing around like self-sacrifice, self-sabotage with the Knight of Swords, jumping in too quickly just because it feels good and it's self-sabotaging. Or like the stuff from the past where you feel like you weren't receiving what you needed. So all of those fears and things and emotions can come up right now, and it can challenge you. Some of you might even be experiencing like losses in relationships with the 5 of Pentacles ending this in the 12th house, like with Venus being there. Some of you guys, might have that experience, especially on March 2nd when we have Venus and Mars and Pluto conjunct all together in the 12th house. It's at 27 degrees of Capricorn, which is like sitting right on my moon on that day. But what does that look like for Aquarius? The Magician and the 2 of Swords. I feel called to read some keywords for the Magician. So every once in a while, I like to do that. Manifestation, working with the elements, potential, as above, so below, using your tools wisely, utilizing resources at hand, harnessing will to action, and visualization. So I kind of am getting a different message here about this day than I was expecting. I mean, I do think some of you could be ending relationships. That's a potential. And again, Venus is retrograding in Capricorn until January 29th. So I feel like if it's going to happen, if there's an ending, it's going to happen between now and then. And then in terms of this whole cycle of reflection and ending these cycles, you will have a lot of time to work on that because Venus will be in Capricorn until March. So you will have kind of ample opportunity to really look at those things. I mean, it's best to do it during the retrograde, but even when it's still moving through the same sign, it's still helpful. It's like you're kind of solidifying or finalizing certain lessons. But on March 2nd, as I said, Venus is going to be conjunct Mars and Pluto in the first house. Or sorry, in the 12th house. And so at this time, I feel like you guys are maybe trying to manifest something, because oftentimes when I see Mars and Pluto together, there's like a very strong like determination of desire because Venus is there. So it's like, I really want this thing. And that's what I feel like what the Magician is saying, like a visualization of what you want, like an attachment, or not an obsession, but like really going deeply into trying to manifest something in particular that has been capturing your attention. But the 2 of Swords next to it, I feel like is a different meaning. It's saying that you either like lack clarity about whether or not that thing is going to come to you, or the 2 of Swords can indicate that you really want to start manifesting something, but you kind of lack clarity about what exactly you want. So like maybe you have an idea, but you don't know like how it's gonna, you don't know the details, or you don't know how it's gonna unfold. It's like a lot of unknowns, or maybe you have to make certain decisions about what you want to manifest, or maybe you manifest something and you have to like decide between certain things, or someone else has to decide something, and it's like this limbo of indecision, which is interesting because that's a day for such powerful like manifestation and desire and all of that. But it's in your 12th house, which is like, the 12th house is the hidden house. It's the house where we do lack clarity, where things are dying off and they're not seen. And so the Two of Swords can indicate that maybe you want something, but it's again like not all the pieces are in place yet, or the timing is off, and it's just like there's a lot of lack of clarity around that outcome. April 4th, we're going to have Venus and Saturn and Mars conjunct in your first house in Aquarius. So having this power, like this powerhouse of all these planets come together in your first house is very interesting. I definitely think it's going to affect you strongly and in a positive way. I pulled the High Priestess, the Sun, and the Ten of Pentacles. So you guys are definitely stepping into some really powerful energy at this time when all these planets align. Saturn and Mars are the malefic, so they do inherently create challenge. But together with Venus, I feel like, and especially being in your first house, it's creating an opportunity for growth. So maybe a little bit of challenge or tension or pressure, but growth as well. And I like Saturn and Mars together, even though they are malefics. They have very different energies. Mars takes us far and gives us action and like drive. And Saturn gives us the consistency, the responsibility, and the dedication to see it through. So we have the flame, and then we have the wind to, like just enough wind to stir the flame and keep it going. And then with Venus there, I feel like it's stuff that helps you really connect with your value, because it's in your first house. So I think it's something like, I think you guys are getting even more clarity about like what makes you feel really secure. And maybe you will also, I know that South Node is in your 10th house, but I think you guys might also have some more clarity around career. With the Sun and the Ten of Pentacles, these both remind me of our purpose and the work that we do to achieve financial stability, success, long-term happiness, fulfillment, a strong family dynamic. And I feel like it's you guys being able to tap into your strong spiritual persona, like your spiritual essence. I feel like you guys are going to tap into your intuition, your third eye, and those things are going to help inform you of the growth that's to come in your career. So this seems like a really powerful day to meditate or to journal about what you want to do next in your career, like what's on your journey, as well as to journal or reflect on kind of all these like really amazing aspects of your personality, like what makes you awesome, you know? Okay. So now let's have a look at Jupiter conjunct Neptune in your second house on April 13th. I personally love this energy in terms of like self-love, confidence. I think this is kind of building off of this day right here. Like you're having some clarity about stuff in your career, and then you're like, fuck, I'm awesome. But at the same time, I will say that like even though Jupiter and Neptune create a lot of compassion and love and just beautiful feelings, like especially beautiful spiritual feelings, it also creates, it's also not the best for like finances, because Neptune is like this really nebulous planet that tends to create like distortion or lack of clarity. And so in your finances, like in such a tangible house, that's not necessarily something that we want to see all the time. Okay, there's a lot of cards that came out for this, so I feel like this might be a really big deal for you guys. So again, on April 13th, Jupiter and Neptune are coming into the sky together, aligning. I think this is really interesting. We have the Six of Swords and Six of Wands. So we have two sixes next to each other. And I believe that six in numerology is a lot about like the home and being really like loving and supportive. And it has kind of like that Virgo energy. So it's a really good time to practice self-care. That's what I'm seeing purely based off of the sixes. But I feel like you guys, with the Six of Swords next to Six of Wands, are going to be leaving behind with the Swords specific thought patterns that maybe made you dim your light. Next to the Six of Wands, this is about us like really putting ourselves out there and desiring to be seen for our greatness. And I also feel like you guys are going to be so generous on this day. And with the Empress card, you might actually receive abundance. Like you might actually get money, even though there is Neptune there. I feel like some of the abundance you might receive might be more spiritual rather than physical, but some of you might actually get money. Regardless, I feel like you guys are cutting out a lot of like the negative thought patterns, negative self-talk, or anything that creates self-doubt, and you're stepping into like you're stepping into your presence a little bit more. This is interesting to have the Five of Wands and the Eight of Wands. I kind of feel like maybe this is for something else. I think that these three cards are for something else. Sometimes that happens to me. Actually, that happens to me a lot. I feel like this might be, this is Mars square Pluto. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So let me set some of this aside. Now let's talk about Venus conjunct Jupiter and Pisces in a second. So I actually feel like these two things are working together. So with April 13th with Jupiter and Neptune combined in the second, I think that brings a lot of that beautiful like confidence and getting rid of the negative self-talk. But then when Venus and Jupiter align on the April 30th, I think that's where the abundance comes from. So like actually getting money. So that is a message. That's actually both those transits are represented in these cards right here. This is actually one of the most positive things in terms of like relationships. Like that's why I see Venus here. I'm like, you guys have potential for love on that day, April 30th, as well as receiving financial blessings. And then Mars is going to be in Aries in your 3rd house, squaring Pluto in your 12th house on July 1st. I definitely feel like this is a time of, look at how much, this is Mars, right? This is a lot of fire, a lot of heat, possibly anger. We have the Five of Wands and the Eight of Wands, and so much fire going on here. So I definitely feel like you guys might be experiencing some fights with people, specifically Mars being in the 3rd. This can be fights with people, like in communication with people that's challenging around the issues from the past or people from the past. So, because it's squaring Pluto in the 12th. So it's like triggering kind of subconscious wounding or issues from the past that you don't want to address necessarily. I definitely feel like that's where the conflict is coming from. With the Eight of Wands, I feel like this is a warning for you guys to not act too impulsively or say things that you don't mean in that conversation. And with the Three of Wands in reverse, I feel like the Three of Wands upright is a lot about pushing our boundaries, self-exploration, going on adventures, and being in reverse, I feel like this is a different message that's kind of saying that maybe now isn't the best time to travel or to take on a lot of new activities. And Mars in the 3rd house is going to inherently make us want to be like super busy and out there and travel and those things. But with the square with Pluto, specifically on this day on July 1st, it's like there might be some stuff that comes up that's actually like not beneficial or can be challenging. And so I feel like there's a little bit of a warning here that taking on a lot of tasks around this day or traveling, being super busy could have some kind of negative burnout effects or some kind of negative effects. And I feel like it's trying to tell you to be wary of that. Okay, there's 2 more transits that I want to look at, and then we're going to wrap up with your animal cards. So on August 1st, you guys are going to have Mars conjunct Uranus and in Taurus in your 4th house. And this is going to square Saturn in the 1st and sextile Venus in the 6th. So Mars and Uranus coming together like this is this rare kind of event where we have the opportunity to have some massive shakeup in some area of our life. And for you guys, this is in your home. So some of you guys might be moving homes or have this like sudden realization about something that's going on within your home, something that you want to do within your home, or even your relationship with your family, or you guys might even have some sudden like emotional realization, or you might have, just something come up with your family and stuff like that. But it's squaring Saturn in the 1st. So like, I feel like some of you, well, let me just finish pulling some cards. Okay. So I feel like some of you guys might find this disturbing. Like maybe the sudden realization or the sudden change, especially like, yeah, a realization or something that someone is communicating to you. So like a truth, might be revealed at this time with the Seven of Swords, especially some like truth about some long ongoing issue that might have been not fully transparent to you in some way, like some kind of burden or thing going on that yeah, that's not super transparent to you, or there's something hidden about it. I feel like that is going to like come to the surface and like be very clear. And there's going to be a need or a desire to change or to liberate or to create more freedom and space in your life as a result of this awareness. And with the square to Saturn in the first, I think that some of you guys might experience a lot of this, like a lot of limiting beliefs or restrictions around around this. So like it might trigger some fears in you, might trigger some limiting beliefs in you, that kind of thing with the square to Saturn in the first. But it's sextiling Venus and Cancer in the 6th house. So I feel like your work, your daily routine, your health, like your support from your colleagues, that is going to be really good. And that's going to help support you through whatever transition this is. Okay, lastly, I want to talk about Mars retrograding in Gemini in your 5th house. This is happening from October 30th of next year to January 13th of 2023. Whenever we have Mars retrograde, it's a time of reflection, contemplation, and not taking as much action. So being in your 5th house, if you guys are single at that time, definitely not the time to date. Or if you are dating, it's a time to like review how you approach that and do things differently, or at least like bring your consciousness to that situation instead of just taking action as we typically do with Mars being direct. It's like a time to reflect on our action rather than keep moving forward. So this is interesting. Being in Gemini also, I feel like a lot of what we're trying to do is like heal. And some of you guys, it might be around social aspects or relationships because it's in the 5th house and Gemini is quite a social sign already. And with the Star card, there's like a healing involved. Like I'm healing from certain things that has happened to me. Let me pull the book out for Page of Wands as well. Seeking, risk-taking, inspiration, discovery, limitless potential, free-spiritedness, curiosity about life, creative and sexual power, exploration, self-growth, desire to learn more, traveling, experimenting, innovation, getting fired up, spontaneity, and volatility. It's interesting because a lot of these words are associated with the 5th house. Like being inspired, like being creatively and divinely inspired comes from the 5th house. Seeking creativity, seeking to travel, to adventure, those are all 5th house things. Just things that bring us like joy, expansion. With the Two of Wands, definitely expansion. I feel like what this is saying though is it's time to heal certain tendencies that you might have around pursuing things in that type of risk-taking way, because that's what the 5th house can be. It can be where we like follow our pleasure. So I'm going to do this thing because I've always done it and I like it. Like I'm going to drink today. I'm going to socialize today. I'm going to spend this money. And it's like healing those tendencies and trying to actually plan more long-term with this Two of Wands instead of acting impulsively. I feel like impulsivity is coming up quite a bit in your reading. So this is there with this Mars retrograde, it's our time to stop taking as much action and reflect upon our impulsivity and our following our carnal desires or whatever desires we have. And instead of doing that, planning long-term and thinking about the long-term consequences instead of just how we feel now. So the way that you're starting this year is a stingray, and the way that you are ending this year is, oh, that's way too many. Just one or two. The way that you are ending this year. The octopus. Okay. So with the stingray starting your year, I feel like you guys are coming into this year really in tune. I mean, you've had Jupiter in your sign all year, in your 1st house. I think that this is giving you guys some divine connection and really growing your spiritual practice and self-understanding. And so I feel like coming in here with the chakras aligned, I think that you're coming into this year feeling really balanced, feeling like you understand yourself deeply. This is a stingray. It travels on the bottom of the ocean. I feel like you guys are looking into the bottom of your heart and soul and the depths of yourself to understand yourself and align yourself. I think that you guys are healing maybe certain aspects of yourself by like spiritually, energetically. I think that you guys are coming to this year strong. With the octopus ending the year, I will say that the octopus is a very intelligent animal and it has its color on its crown chakra, on its brain. And I feel like part of what that's saying is you guys are going to be developing a lot of intelligence and wisdom and learning a lot this year. And with all these tentacles, I feel like you guys, and then also kind of what I was saying about the burnout or working really hard, like the grind, not the burnout, but the grind. I feel like with all these tentacles, it's saying you guys are going to be really busy at the end of the year, because that South Node being in your 10th house is a 1.5-year cycle where you are going to be busy and like have a lot of responsibility, likely, especially with Saturn in the first, for the next 1.5 years. And so having the octopus here is kind of reiterating that not only are you guys becoming wiser and growing, but you're also kind of taking on a lot. And you're going to have a lot of responsibility or a lot of tasks and be quite busy at the end of the year as a result of all of the astrology. So that's what I'm seeing for you guys, Aquarius. I love you guys so much. If you enjoyed this, please let me know by liking, commenting down below, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you want a 2022 reading, you can check that out in the description box below. And I hope you guys have an amazing holiday and new year, and I'll see you later. Bye.